Hello and welcome to another episode of Run Till You're Done. Today's guest brings with them another fascinating running resume, as well as being one of the most positive people in the community. If you are looking for running inspiration or just anything inspiring in general, go and give this guy a follow on the socials. Thank you for coming on, Andy Fior-Berry.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to come chat.
So we always ask the first question of every guest that comes on: how did you start your running journey?
So originally it was just I used to get too fat for my own liking, and so I'd sign up for a half marathon and then lose all the weight and then get fat again after I'd finished it. And then I did the full marathon in Edinburgh and swore I was never running again. That was it. That was hell. I didn't know about fueling at that point, so around about 3 hours in, I literally felt like I wanted to curl up on the side of the curb and just go to sleep. Didn't enjoy that. Swore I'd never do it again, and then about 5 pints deep in a pub in Newcastle before a home game, one of my mates who just lost his mum to cancer said, "I'm going to do this ultra marathon for charity, and will you do it with us?" Well, you're not going to say no, are you? So yeah, before the 6th pint, the credit cards were out. It was booked, and that was kind of where it began. On that journey, I was introduced to fell running, and my mum used to take me and my sister hiking when we were kids. Quite a lot. Like, we did the coast to coast, and we've done like loads of different West Highland Way and all of these things when we were young. And I think just that reconnection to the mountains as an adult it kind of filled a hole that I didn't even know was there, and it was just instant addiction. That every spare minute, if I wasn't with my kid, I wanted to be in the hills. And then once he was old enough, I wanted to be in the hills, either by myself or with the kid. And the hills were the non-negotiable. And it's just kind of developed from there, really. Got introduced to the Bob Graham round, and I've had an addiction to that ever since. And everything else just kind of flowed from there. It's just, honestly, like, everything has flowed from the fact that I just love being in the mountains. I don't see myself as an ultra runner. Like, I don't see myself as anything other than a person who loves the mountains. And right now, how I choose to express that love is through running through them for a ridiculously long time at some stupid paces. But you know, there'll be a time when that isn't the case, and I'll still love running in the mountains. I'll still love being out, whether that's on a sea kayak, a mountain bike, just hiking with a dog. That's what it's about for me.
Well, you said that your first marathon was Edinburgh, and then you got convinced in the pub after 6 or 7 pints. That story sounds very familiar, because my first marathon was Edinburgh. I finished it and said never again, and then I went to the pub and ended up running the first of 60 plus ultras. So yeah, very, very familiar story.
I think that if your ultra running story didn't start with I was sitting in the pub and then
yeah. So before your ultra running story, what was the first race that you would say that you signed up to? Was that your marathon, or was there before that?
First Bladen race, maybe. I think it's like 6 miles. It's quite an old race. In Newcastle, there's a song about it. So Bladen race on the 9th of June. That was maybe, I don't know, 2012, something like that. But you know, not competitive. Like, I was at school, I was so far last in my school cross country that they gave me a special mention at the end of season awards. Like, I got lapped at school. I'm not one of these people who comes on and say, "Oh yeah, so I used to run for county and I ran nationals as a kid, and then I kind of lost it for a little bit." And no, that was never my story. I was quite a large kid. Like, I wasn't. I was not a slim build, but it's never stopped me trying.
Yeah, everything that you're saying, I totally relate to. I wouldn't say that I was a big child, but I wasn't active. So exactly the same thing. It wasn't.
See, I was active. I just was big. Which is why my mum wasn't really that fussed about it. Like, I just love eating. I still love eating. Like, eating's amazing. Like, you cannot beat good food. And yeah, like, quality of fuel, but enjoy your fuel as well. But I always have. And yeah, I was always active as a kid alongside that. Football mainly, just before school, at break times at school, lunchtime, after school, football. Yeah. Still love a second breakfast too, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I love it as well. I've got my stuff right here. Geeky stats. How heavy are you?
Right now?
Yeah.
About 74.5 kilo.
And what would you consider, like you said that you started exercising to lose weight. For you now, what would you consider being too heavy?
I don't really do weight like that. To be honest, I pulled that number out my backside. It'll be I just don't weigh myself. I don't believe in it. I don't like when I talk to like Reenie McGregor or Paul Booth. They're both really they're like the two nutritionists that I talk to the most. They're both really solid on the fact that actually weight as a number doesn't tell you enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I was 90 kilos, I knew I was too fat. Like that's fairly obvious. But now it's based a lot more on how do I feel. Am I fueling my training? I've got a high training load, and I still do some physical work alongside that. So making sure that the training is fueled is far more important than the number on the scales. And that's what we focus on, really.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to hear. It's about how your body is feeling, not about what the scales say that you are.
Yeah, and it's just super true. Like I've had quite a few athletes, male and female, who get far too obsessed with the weight element of it. Like it's so much more important to look at your fueling. And that normally starts with, and I'm not a nutritionist and you shouldn't take your nutrition advice from me, but I'd always suggest it start with writing it down. Write down what you're actually putting in your body and do it for 2 weeks and then look at it. Normally the answer is pretty clear, like if there's an issue, because the information's out there. Like it's to get the rough balance right. And timing of what you eat is the other thing I've been working on myself.
I'm similar to yourself, Andy. I don't really go off scales. I think they just make you feel rubbish regardless a lot of the times. And I usually go off measurements. So I think you're totally spot on.
Do you...
With the running.
Well, before we move on, do you follow any particular... What's a healthy diet? Do you eat what you want?
So I am plant-based. Like I'm 100% plant-based, but I don't normally do that as like I love, as I've said, I love tasty food. So for me, it's about flavor, and I just choose not to put animal products in that for the environment. The science on that is just crystal clear. Like there just is no argument. Like anybody who tries to start a discussion about that is just trying to ease their own conscience. It's just solid. So I always start with timings and then what and when. That is the key. So you're looking to make sure that you've got enough carbs before a long day. You're looking to make sure you've got enough protein to recover after you've done a hard session, and then we just eat really tasty food, basically. We love cooking as well, which helps. Like, really enjoy cooking. So,
yeah. After a long run, what would you most look forward to having?
An ice cold can of Coke or Fanta lemon. I'm a massive. I love fizzy pop. Like fizzy pop is my absolute. Oh, yeah, I'd live on that stuff. If it wouldn't rot my teeth and just not hydrate me, then I would just live on fizzy pop. It's yeah.
What about Iron Brew? Are you a fan of that?
Oh, love it. Yeah, absolutely love it. It's and it's always so cheap up here. It's like, I go back a door and I'm like, it's like twice the price. I'm like, what the? That's no good. That's no good. I want to need my Iron Brew fixed.
With the sugar tax that was brought in a few years ago, that's made your addiction to fizzy pop a lot better because there's a lot less sugar in it. So.
Yeah, it's like I went to America once and had a can of Pepsi, and I was like, "What is this? An amazing syrup! It's like drinking a can of syrup. It's just yeah. That's one of my vices: coffee and sugar. Yeah.
The problem that I have is I don't normally drink tea or coffee, but I don't drink tea or coffee, so I don't have caffeine. And if I drink fizzy drinks with caffeine after, say, 10 o'clock in the morning, I won't sleep at night. So it makes it difficult to go for a run.
Yeah, we normally describe it as my blood system's getting over my getting too strong in my caffeine system. I do live on coffee, and it's not good, but it's fairly true. I do love a cup of coffee.
Well, I don't actively avoid it because of the caffeine. It's just I don't like it, so there's no point in drinking it.
That's fair. Yeah.
So
right.
Well, if you're running, Andy, you say that you're not competitive and you love the mountains, but looking at your record...
Oh, I never said I wasn't competitive.
At your record, it's hard not to notice that you podium. So when did you realise in your running from that start at 2012 to now, when did you realise I'm actually quite good at this?
It's the dog saying hello. So probably after I did my first Bob Graham round in 2016, that's when I kind of first went, I did better than I thought there. I literally wanted to get round under 24 hours, did it in 18 hours 50. And I was kind of like, that went pretty well. I wonder if I just keep training hard, what I could do. And I'd always just find the next person faster than me and just start training with them. And I was really lucky to be in the same club as Jim Mann at that time. And, Jim had the winter record at that point, and he has the Spine Challenger South record still. So he's he's a really good runner, and we became friends. So I'd go and drive over on a weeknight, and I'd train with him at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, and he helped me with my training. And 2017, I won my first ever race, first time I'd won anything in my life, at the 10 Peaks, set the course record, and yeah, it was probably then that I was like, all right, at a regional level, I'm pretty good, but I never dreamed probably of taking a step further than that. I didn't really see that as something that I could do in how my life was. I was already training. I ended up with overtraining as well. I just didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have a proper coach at that time, and I ended up overtraining myself, running the love for the sport out of myself. By the end of 2017 into 2018, I was just kind of trying to pick races that I thought I could do well at rather than races that genuinely excited me. So that was kind of into 2019, and then life kind of got turned. I nearly went into full Fresh Prince of Bel-Air there. My life got turned upside down, and yeah. So then, my wife left me at that time, and kind of got a great reset, is how I see it. And I got the opportunity to decide which parts of my character I wanted to lose, which parts I wanted to build. my new life with my son from, and that definitely was helped by a Bob Graham support. And it sounds really daft, it really does, but like running was a big part of the reason that it all kind of collapsed, because I did just want to be in the hills. Like I wanted to be in the hills, she didn't want to be in the hills, and that was pretty much it. And so like there was definitely a kind of like, are the hills a positive or a negative in my life? And I went on a Bob Graham support, and it was a blue sky day, but quite cool. And I helped one of my really good friends, Chris Bird, and he wanted to. The only person he told that he wanted to go under 20 hours was me. And I said, "You get yourself to Wasdale in good shape. I'll get you to Moot Hall in under 20 hours." And he came down, and he just gave us this great story of one of his support runners coming down with a schedule. And I just took one look at Chris, and he just gave us this grin. And one of his supporters was like, "There's the schedule." I just pushed it away and went, "Oh, we won't need that." I was like, this guy is on. Like, and it was just that buzz of being with somebody, pushing their limits, helping them in this environment. I got to the end, and I was only meant to do leg 4, but I did leg 5 as well. We got him under 19 hours in the end. And it was just this, how can this thing that makes this whole group of people feel so good be anything but a positive in my life? And it was definitely at that point that I was like just set that anybody new coming into my life had to understand and share in this vision of a life where the mountains mean a lot to us. And then I was really fortunate to find somebody who definitely does see the world in that way. And I guess more than that, also showed me that the races aren't the important part. I love running in the mountains. I love training. Training is the important part. Being able to get up every day and smile about the fact that, you know, we get to do this. I was just talking to one of my athletes the other day, and we were discussing kind of training peaks and things like that. And when you click on training peaks on a morning, your thought shouldn't be, what do I have to do today? It should be, what do I get to do today? Because it's a privilege, like, and it doesn't matter whether that's in the suburbs of South Manchester or in the Scottish Highlands. Like, having the physical health and ability and time to go for a run is just amazing, especially when it's something that you want to do. You've chosen to do this as your hobby, and if you don't want to do it anymore, that's okay as well. Go find something else to do, ride a bike or go for a hike or whatever you want. But yeah, I've chosen running, my athletes have chosen running, so love it because it's awesome. Sorry, I forgot what the question was.
It doesn't matter. It's all
I'll do that. Go on a rant. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Keep on going. Right. How many Bob Grahams have you done?
Successfully, or just all told?
Both.
I've started 6, completed 4. So I've done summer supported clockwise, summer solo unsupported anti-clockwise, winter the same. So winter clockwise supported, and then midwinter solo unsupported anti-clockwise.
So it's safe to say that you know your way around, and that's why. Well, it's probably not. It's probably just because you're a good guy. People ask for support. How many times have you supported people doing it?
I think I'm up to about 35 officially.
Yeah, so
something like that. But then, and then like you've got paddy buckley rounds and winter rounds and the paddy, and I've done some Wainwright support and 24-hour record support, Steve Parr round support, the Grand Round, John Kelly's Grand Round, helped on that. So yeah. Canine Way for Damo.
If we ever decide to do a BG round, then we know who to call.
Yeah. I used to laugh at so I've got 2 border collies now, but the older one, was so good at doing leg 2 that in the end, in the clag, people thought I was taking the piss, but they'd be like, which way? They'd just follow the dog. And they'd be like, seriously, I'm like, follow the dog. The dog knows the way. It's fine. Like, just follow the dog. And the dog knew all the lines of leg 2. You just kind of set him away with Felkeld, and I called him a DPS. It's my dog positional system.
Probably better than most humans can, anyway.
Yeah, he was spot on.
You mentioned you've got coaching clients, but you've got a coach yourself, who I believe is a former guest, Kim Colson. And he set a Lakeland 24-hour record, but you're not competitive, and you went out and tell us about that, what you did.
Yeah, Kim wasn't my coach when I approached Kim because he had the record and he was known as a really good coach. So in 2021, I did the Steve Parr round, which is every 2,500 feet Wainwright in the Lake District. It's a circuit of best part of 100 miles, 10,000 meters of climb. It's a great route. If anybody's done the Bob Graders for anything else, they should definitely look up the Steve Parr round. But I kind of reset my bar of what was achievable. Like I broke the record by quite a bit, dropped it down to 33 hours. And I kind of decided then that I could either look for smaller records or smaller races that I knew I could do well and try win or try and break, or I could look for the biggest, hardest thing that I could possibly think of might be possible, like a 1% chance of it being possible, do everything I can to work hard for it and be proud of the result, whether I got it or not. And that for me was the Lake District 24-hour fell record. And so just kind of looked at it and went, right, well, Kim is a coach. Kim has the record. He obviously knows what it takes to get there. And so I approached him, and he very graciously accepted to take me on to break it. And we put together a plan. So the plan involved doing the Paddy Buckley first to kind of like build that speed, because I wasn't quick enough in 2021. I would not have been successful if I went in 2021. Just I wasn't strong enough in the head or in the legs to do that yet. So and he had the record for the Paddy Buckley as well. So we set off on this goal, and Kim's like a paid friend. He's an amazing coach, but he's as much a mentor and a friend as anything else. We kind of work the coach, and I won't say together because that doesn't do him enough justice, but there's definitely an element of teamwork. And I kind of, like when you go bowling and you got your buffers that just keep the ball in the right place. Kim is definitely my buffers. He tells me if I'm going too hard. He tells me if I'm not going hard enough, and he makes sure that my training is productive and is a great third voice in my running. Even on race day, he can always be relied upon to help Jess and myself to get the job done. And
with Kim being your coach, what I would love to ask you about is your recent event that you've just completed in Gran Canaria. The training and the lead up to that was quite eventful. Can you tell the listeners what had happened a few weeks before you were due to go out?
Oh, I was absolutely flying in November. Like, I was probably like up there with the fittest I've ever been. Training was going amazing. And then, it's that old Mike Tyson thing. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And my punch was a massively, severely fractured wrist. I pushed my forearm bone into my hand, exploded the end of my wrist bone and into 6 pieces. It was. I went down into the Nicola Jackson. Like, she was amazing on the day. Like, kind of got me sorted, got me to the car, got me down to the hospital, and I had it like zipped up in my jacket. So kind of like against my chest, and my jacket was zipped up. And I got to the desk, and I was like, I fractured my wrist. And the woman behind the desk was like, well, I think we'll decide that. And I unzipped my jacket, and she just looked horrified and went, so you fractured your wrist? And I was like, yeah. I was like, this thing isn't a maybe. This is a how bad is it? So that was November the probably 16th, I think, something like that. In the surgery the next day to have it all straightened out, pins put in. But, you know, me being me, the first question I asked when the doctor put us back together was, well, when what can I do? Like, what is allowed? What are my parameters? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I don't think I can run, but can I bike? Can I hike? And he's like, yeah, you can do both those things, as long as you don't. Actually, no, the first week it was fine because I needed it checked the next week anyway. So the first week I could sweat. So by the Monday I was back on an exercise bike, and it was just about reframing my training to what can I do, what can I control, what can I do, and in the end that ended up being a lot of weighted pack hiking. I wasn't allowed to sweat after I got my proper cast on the week after, because the pins basically were open wounds, so I wasn't allowed to get sweat in there and get it manky. So that's what I did until just before Christmas. The poor dogs had to take shifts. One dog took the morning shift of an hour and a half hike, and one dog took the afternoon shift of another hour and a half hike. And I just hammered the paths, trails, roads, whatever I had in front of me that day to try and. It was about minimizing the drop in fitness. I was never going to get stronger. It was like, okay, what can we do to minimize the drop, work a slightly different system, work on that kind of fat building, that low intensity work. So I'd often go out. Again, I'm not a nutritionist. I just kind of like talk to my guys. I'd go out in some form of not fully fasted, but kind of that kind of fasted state at a really low intensity, and then make sure I fueled it well after to recover. And we did a lot of that.
So,
and then it was just about getting back to running and then seeing what we could do, really.
How did you find you turned up at the start line? You'd been injured. You're getting back to it. Did you feel 100%? How were you sort of mentally going into it? Were you into Transgrancanaria? How did you feel that you could win it? Did you feel I'm as good as I was back before your injury?
I was never going to win Transgrancanaria. That was never the goal. The caliber there is probably one grade up again from where I am, and I'm comfortable with that. It's about getting the most out of myself on the day. Transgrancanaria was actually always about learning lessons ready for UTMB, and that lesson I needed to learn was I need to let them go at the start. My physiology doesn't allow me. I build up far too much lactate far too quickly if I set off at the front of the field. They're running 3:30, 3:45 minute Ks along that promenade. At that pace, I'm building up too much lactate. Like in the first 2K, that is a one-way ticket to me being in a world of hurt really quickly. So I needed to let them go and then trust that A, all of them won't finish. B, I will catch some of them up once we get to the hills. Like that's where throw me down a hill, I'll catch 9 out of 10 runners coming down a mountain, and just trust those two things, and trust my ability to do what I'm good at. And that's what I set out to do. So, I was whatever, 40 something through that first checkpoint. Perfect. That's the plan, going to plan. And then just keep winding them in all through the night. And every time I go to a checkpoint, I'd lose a few more that are DNFing, go past a few more, lose a few more, until all of a sudden you're sitting seventh and doing all right. And then the lack of training hit. There's no hiding the fact that I only got about 4 or 5 good long runs in the mountains pre-Grancanaria, because when I first got my cast off as well, the doctors were like, you can't go in the mountains because the bone was far too delicate. If I was to fall again, break it again, I'd go back to square one. So I had to stay low. I couldn't do big hill climbs, couldn't do big hill efforts. I definitely couldn't throw myself downhill at any form of pace until about 3 weeks before I went out. So those big long descents, especially in the first half, a lot of it's on kind of road or concrete track. It just took it out of my quads. My quads were absolutely shot by the last 20k. And then I made some stupid decisions, some stupid hydration decisions at checkpoint. Completely missed a checkpoint out by accident, ran straight past it. Still not quite sure how that happened. So ended up severely dehydrated, the most dehydrated I've ever been, to the point where I was ringing Jess up going, this is happening. Do I need to stop? Am I about to have kidney failure? And she was like, okay, I'll ring Kim and I'll have a Google. I don't think so, though. Just carry on for now. And then get a phone call back saying, nope, you're all right. It's just time to suck it up, buttercup, and crack on. Try and get some more hydration on at the next aid station. So those two things combined led to the fact that, I did kind of fall to pieces, lost a couple of places in the last 10, 15k, which is, a bit of a disappointment, but I set myself the target of going sub 15 hours, top 10 before I went out there. I finished in 14 and a half, finished 9th. I can't grumble at that. I think that it's one of those things that's kind of difficult to say without sounding like a complete jerk, but I'll say it anyway, just because that's kind of what I do. It doesn't matter whether you're 1st, 3rd, 9th, 20th, 50th, 100th, 500th. I could find 20 different things that I could do better in my race every single time I race, whether that is the Lake District 24-hour fell record, which is probably one of my proudest things. I can still find you 100 reasons why that was terrible. And I think that it's just in our nature to push and strive to improve. That is the case. I don't think it detracts from the fact I had a great time or that I'm proud of it. You can still be proud of something and find a load of fault in it. Those two things they don't have to be polar opposites. They can be the same thing. And so there's plenty I would do differently, but isn't that the joy of ultra running? There isn't really an end.
I
you
think
just keep learning.
I definitely agree with you. Part of the sort of debrief, even if it's just to yourself or to your coach, is you did a great job and nobody can take that away from you. But how do you improve? And then next time when you go back, you know how you can improve. And it's not necessarily improving places, it's just improving your experience.
But one of the huge things of that is you've got to then implement.
Yes.
So many people will go, I did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, and then don't do anything different. They don't change anything or try anything different. They just go, oh, well, this is what I do when I race. Oh, I puke up. It's well, you probably shouldn't be. And there's probably a reason for it. So let's try something different. And maybe you won't. I don't want to get massive cramp. I don't want to be peeing blood. So let's try and look at a way I can hydrate myself enough to not have that happen. and put some stuff into my training to learn how to make that not happen. So, yeah.
So in your debrief, what is the most important thing that you've learned that if you go back next time, and we haven't asked you yet whether you're going back, what would you improve? What would you change?
Hydration would be number one. Not breaking my wrist in November. and then hydration, definitely. Just making sure that I practically need to double what I was drinking. at the start as well. Even though I'm so good with my nutrition that I nail it every race, just about. But somehow I seem to have this disconnect with hydration and the same thing. And I just need to use the same mentality for my hydration as I do for my nutrition, and that is something that I'm already putting into practice, even on like hour-long training runs, like where normally I wouldn't take out anything to drink, but just making sure I'm taking out that liquid and just getting my stomach used to taking that liquid on whilst running every single day, so it knows how to use it. That sloshy feeling in your belly, that bloated feeling, is the norm. And if you can make that the norm, then it'll feel better on race day, rather than just thinking, oh, well, I won't do this now, and then I'll get to race day, and then I'll try and hit my body with a litre of liquid an hour and expect it to do it. Like, that's crazy talk. You've got to give your body a bit. They're amazing machines, your human body. You've got to give it a hand and let it practice what you want it to achieve, because sometimes it might reject it, but you'd much rather it rejected it on a training run than on a race day, and learn what can it take and what can't it take. But that's what you're training for. That isn't an experiment to keep trying out on race day.
Yeah, the problem you've got is you're staying in Scotland at the moment, and how can you train for the conditions that are in Gran Canaria? Do you drink the same amount of water here as you do there? Does that change things like how much salt you're taking in? It's a balancing act, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but the weather thing is definitely an issue. Like my last training run, I had 5 jackets on, I think, because it was, wind chill of -15 on the tops, and it was absolutely brutal. And I've got ice spikes on, and having to carry an ice axe in a 6 kilo pack with safety gear in. But so that was definitely something. Like, I did a lot of sauna, but you can still get your body. So say you can do your treadmill session that you hydrate quite highly, which is always going to be warm. You're always going to be sweaty, whether that's in a gym or at home. And then hit your body really hard with a bunch of water and go jump in the sauna, which again is like a low level stress to the body. It's still having to deal with the heat and the liquid that you're giving it. And so there are workarounds that you can do to put the body into a state of stress and heat, and giving it the liquid and expecting it to try and balance all of those things.
When you take the sauna, would you do things like running on the spot, press ups or anything in the sauna, just to put that extra pressure on your body?
I tend to do more kind of yoga-y type stretching and things. So I will do some movements, but not mega stressful for me. I know some people like to do the heat suits and things like that, and train on a bike in the heat, but which apparently is potentially slightly more effective. But it's all a balance, because that is a huge stress on the body. So if that's where you're putting your focus, the stress in the body, then that's got to come off something else. So then you've got to go, okay, well, am I going to drop my hill session this week down a little bit in intensity to give way for the heat training? And that is a really fine balance and a very personal choice, I think.
I just have one more question about Gran Canaria before we do move on. When you crossed that finish line, having achieved your goals, did you get a bigger sense of pride finishing that, knowing that you had came off of that injury, than any other races or records that you'd done?
No, I think that finish lines for me are very much phew, that's over. Again, it doesn't matter where you finish. Getting to that finish line is always a question of, oh, I can stop running. That feels pretty good. I was pretty ready to finish, and I'd managed to throw myself on the floor in the riverbed and massively cut my arm. So I I had like medical teams running around us, like being like, ah. So yeah, it was all a bit kind of like, I just wanted to sit down in the shade and have some water, if I'm honest, and just kind of just breathe it in. I think that because I'd fallen apart in the last 20K, I'd kind of felt a bit, I just wanted it to be over in that last bit, and I wanted to be back in the swimming pool, cooling off, just recovering from the heat of the day. But so no, like, I guess I don't tend to compare races in too much in my own head. I think that races like Gran Canaria or, you know, the race in Chamonix in August, they tend to be, I want to do them, excite me, and I train hard for them. But there's definitely a difference between those and, you know, the Fell Records or, you know, your Ramsey Round, your Paddy Buckley. Like, they're definitely more my soul food, is what I'd call them. And so they kind of tend to hold a more special place in my heart than the kind of big events. I still like doing them, but they're just very different things in my head, I think.
You said earlier that it was a privilege. People should be glad to get out to be running, and you just said now that at the end of a big event, I'm not going to say race because it could be a record or whatever, you just want it to stop. So is it actually that you're wanting to go out for a run because you're wanting the feeling of finishing rather than the feeling of running, if that makes sense?
No, I run events because I want to see what I can get out of my body. I want to see, so I am naturally a competitive person, and I think that being competitive gets a bad rap. I think that you shouldn't be competitive when you're playing snap with a 4-year-old. I think that if you put yourself into a running race, then it's more than perfectly natural to be super competitive and want to do the best you can do, wherever you are in the field. And I don't see that as a negative. I don't think you should be a dick, but I think you can be competitive, and I don't think the two go together. There are competitive dicks, but they're probably going to be that anyway. So yeah, exactly right. So we've got a saying that if you line up 1,000 people at anything, whether that's 1,000 vegans, 1,000 meat eaters, 1,000 whatever, you're going to have this many people who are that end of the spectrum. You're going to have this many people that, but the vast majority are in the middle. So I think that the vast majority of people in the middle, it's perfectly fine to be competitive. Just do it. So when I sign up to do a race, I want to do that race to the very best of my ability on that day with that fitness that I have. And sometimes that'll mean that I just want to finish. Sometimes it means that I can finish super strong. Sometimes it means I get to the end and I'm like, I didn't quite give enough. And that's where the journey of it, what we were talking about earlier about learning and adapting and putting new things in to then next time you do that to go again. And I see races as, you know, just that. They're competitive signposts about how your training's going. When I'm training, I just love running. And whether that is running super hard and enjoying that kind of, you know, those trips to the pain cave that are only kind of like, you know, 90 minutes long or whatever, they can still be enjoyable. Just, you know, nice trips out into the hills, they're definitely enjoyable. But it's not one or the other. It's not one attitude to running all of the time. It's just kind of like, okay, well, this is an event and I want to do this event, and this event is going to be probably quite good type 2 fun, but I'm here to do a job.
Yeah.
And that job is getting the most out of myself.
Yeah, you said there that you can't be too competitive with a 4-year-old playing Snap. I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and she's got a game called Rainbow Pirates, and she is the most competitive person I've ever met. I don't know if it's inherited or whether it's a top thing, but she'll beat me every time. But we have to be competitive. I think that sort of it's a good thing for her. It's a good life learning thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to know when to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But so I think it's fine for the 4-year-old, or in your case, the 6-year-old, to be competitive. But as an adult, you shouldn't be then crushing it and being in their face like, I beat you, So I think that, because I think that it's important that is brought through with young people. That it's okay to want to work hard, that it's okay to want to win. I think that is okay. Like, it's okay to want to improve yourself, but it's also okay if you are 100th and want to come 90th. Like, that's great as well. Like, these are all just personal milestones, and being competitive isn't dependent on winning or not winning. Being competitive is a progression of yourself. I'm just fortunate that in my case, that is, can I challenge to win?
Yeah.
You've had quite a number of adventures since you've started your running. Is there anything that you've came across, scary experiences you've had?
Yeah, the Winter Tranters round in Scotland. So it's a shortened version of the Charlie Ramsey round. It takes in the Mamors, the Grey Corries, the Annox, CMD, and the Ben. So I did that in winter in 2023, and that is probably the best adventure I've ever had. It also had 2 of the scariest things that I've ever done in my life. The week before, Kim was like, "Are you sure you've got the winter experience to do this?" I was like, "Yeah, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine." I got I kind of was going through the Mamors, went down this gully, just completely, my feet just disappeared. Before I know it, I'm absolutely hurtling down this gully because it's just sheet ice. I had my ice axe out, managed to get myself in the axe in a self-arrest, the first kind of what felt like 5 seconds, it was probably 1. But I was like, I don't know if there's a cliff. I'm slowing down, but I'm not slowing down very quickly. And I'm like, I could go over anything at any point here. So I slowed down and it was fine. Looked down, plenty of clearance. I could have slid from. It actually probably would have been quite a quick descent if I'd just let it go a little bit longer. But so then that, and then climbed up onto the Annex. Again, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but anyway, there was just a kind of head wall of about 4 meters, 3 or 4 meters of ice, and I only had 1 axe, and I only had micro spikes, and I just ended up kind of punching kind of handholds and footholds into the snow to kind of create a ladder to get up onto there. And the last move was just a Hail Mary swing of the axe and hope that there was a handhold when I pulled on the axe. I kind of looked behind me and I went, well, I can either climb all the way down and go home, or I can swing this axe and we can roll the dice. And fortunately, I kind of pulled up on the axe and there was a nice big rock to pull on. But so that had some funky moments, but it was what an adventure! That was amazing. So yeah,
I think I might be wrong in my geography. Is that Charlie's Gully that's going up on Anachmore?
Yeah, so I didn't use that. So I used the ridge, the fin.
Okay.
Which is further over.
One of my scariest experiences is going up Charlie's Gully. I ran from Aviemore to Fort William, and going up Charlie's Gully after being awake for over 24 hours and just thinking, I shouldn't be here. It was just like sheet ice, as you described. Is it? What am I doing? And I didn't have signal on my phone, so I couldn't phone for help. It was just, why am I here? But getting to the finish, it's like, oh yeah, that was fine. I'm finished now.
Yeah. You quickly self just file it away as it was perfectly fine, absolutely fine. I was actually back up there the other day, and I looked over the top because it wasn't snowing. I looked at it, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like, it makes me feel sick thinking. I thought about taking a picture and putting it on Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, my mum follows me on Instagram. I better not, because like,
she doesn't need to know what you're doing.
She doesn't need to see that."
Right. Out of all the things that you've done, all your achievements, what is the thing that you're most proud of?
24-hour fill record in the Lake District. Like, this, I still feel there's unfinished business there, but like, that was a life goal. I was prepared to make that my goal for years, and just keep going back and learning and going back, and to get it, albeit on time, rather than add an extra top on the first attempt. Is, yeah, like, it's just not even close.
And what is your why for keeping on running, Andy?
I still don't think I've found the end answer of how far I can take it. And as I say, combining that with, I just love being in the mountains, and I love exploring what I can get this, I'm 40 this year, what can I get my body to do for it whilst it's capable of doing it. There's a great, like, Jimmy Carr clip going around on Instagram, and where he talks about, in 20 years' time, you'll give all your yearly possessions, all your worldly possessions, to have the fitness that you've got today. And so the only thing that I feel about that is doing that justice. And what my big goal at the minute is just writing a list of everything that if I couldn't run competitively tomorrow, my list is, what would I regret not trying? And just work down that, because at some point I won't be able to run this fast or this far. At some point I will just be tottering around, the valleys of Glen Nevis, looking up going, whoa, I remember when I used to absolutely fly around those hills. So when that day comes, I want to just be left with, yeah, but you tried everything that you could dream of, and whether I'm successful or whether I'm not successful, I'd rather try and have an answer for all those things, and that is definitely my driver.
So when you're out in the hills, or anywhere really, and you've obviously convinced yourself that this is what I want to do, because it's what you're saying right now, what you want to do. What is it you think about when you're an hour, 24 hours, however long it is? What is it you're thinking about when you're running?
Training or racing?
Both.
Training, absolutely everything, from what I need to do that week to, sometimes I'll end up just thinking about, like, one of my athletes and what races they're doing and their training, and it'll just sit in my head for half an hour, and I kind of mull a lot of things over. Sometimes it'll be what DIY jobs I need to do when I get back to the house. Sometimes it'll be, like, all just like general life stuff as well, like relationship with my son, relationship with my partner, like all that kind of stuff that we all probably just mull over when I'm training. When I'm racing, like, I kind of think, like, I have a switch that very much goes into, have I eaten, have I drank? Is my effort level right? And it tends to just kind of oscillate with that, with whatever motto or motivational thing that I'm kind of using for that race. So for Gran Canaria, for instance, I was just remembering my 5 R's. So whenever I had a negative thought, I would realize it, I would refuse it, I would relax, I'd refocus, and I'd restart. And just kept doing that every time that a thought that was something not to do with where I wanted to be at that moment, just restart, just relax the shoulders again, because I kind of find that like you tighten up when you start like racing, and you get like a negative thought. Your kind of shoulders tighten up, and then you start feeling it in your bottom of your back, and then that pulls on your hamstrings before you know it, you've got cramp. And it's all because you got a little bit stressed out and a little bit too tight, and just being able to just release that and relax and just stay in the moment definitely helped me.
When you say during training you're thinking about various things, DIY jobs, etc. When you get home, do you remember about that task? Because I often, it's like, I know that I was thinking about it, but I can't remember it when I get home.
Not all the time, but sometimes the calm of the brain that it feels when it's processed some of those thoughts then just allows you to be the best version of yourself anyway, even if you don't remember exactly what you were thinking or organising at the time. I'll also sometimes I use like a voice note thing on my phone. If it's a really good thought, I'll voice note it and just make a reminder for myself. And I'll sometimes get home and I'll be like, that idea was shit. Like, what were you thinking? Like, you voice noted that. But yeah, I think that just that calmness, that allowing the brain the time to process a whole bunch of stuff. You know, I'm old enough to remember when you used to have to defrag your computer. Do you remember defragging your computer? And so like it would end up like all the coloured blocks all over your hard drive would be kind of like all splattered all over, and then you'd press defrag and it would take about 6 hours, but it would organise them all and just kind of reorganise all of your hard drive. That's what running is to my brain. Just reorganise it all, put it all where it needs to be, and then it allows me the ability to then, as I say, just be a better version of myself to crack on.
Watching that defrag process was quite calming in itself, but I'd rather be out for a run.
And as for the jobs that you think about when you're out, I'm sure if they're important enough, the wife will remind you about them if you do forget.
Nah, she's good as gold. She's not like that. She's it's very much a team thing. Of a lot of the time, I'll come back and I'll find a whole room painted. So it's yeah. don't have that scenario.
Do you have any more adventures or dream races on the bucket list still to tick off that you want to do?
Yeah, so dream big, right? So I'll regret it if I don't try it. Next up, I'll have a pop at the Bob Graham record. It's a huge one. Like the chances are slim again, probably slimmer than the 24-hour, but all the numbers add up to the fact that there's a chance, and that's all I need to touch the door and at Moot Hall and give it a go. All we need to chance, shoot for the hoop, as Kim would say. So the talk of failing has kind of left the house now. We're not talking about failing, we're talking about succeeding and just being proud of that time. Whatever it is, we'll race it my way. We'll go hard, and as I say, like that time will be what it is, and whether that's under 12:23 or not, I can't tell you at this point. But what I can promise you is that it'll be the most I had on me on the day, and that's all I can give.
Is there anybody? This question can be difficult to answer or ask even. Is there anybody that you would like to run with, whether they're alive, not, inspirational, fictional?
I think that, I mean, there's a whole bunch of funny answers that when I read this in the WhatsApp, I was like, could be naughty. But no, I think that I always find running with other people who are absolutely stoked to be running inspirational, and it gives me energy, and it doesn't have to be like elite runners for that to be the case. So there's two examples that come to mind. Like, I love running with two guys. One's called Chris Morgan and one's called Josh Wade, and they both leave me feeling super psyched. They're both at different ends of the field, but one run with them leaves me super psyched. So the only person I can think who, and you know, like, he's so hot right now, But somebody like David Roach would be amazing to go running with. Somebody like Kipchoge would be amazing to go running with. If I can persuade Kipchoge to come on the trails, because road running, no thanks. But like that kind of person who you hear them talk about running, and it just makes you want to go for a run again, whether you've been out yet or not. And so they'd probably be the first names that come to mind.
And one more question just before we wrap it up. What's next for you running wise?
Yeah, so it's that Bob Graham. It's all in for that. Absolutely. I've come out of Gran Canaria pretty well actually. Back end of last week, I really turned the corner. Energy levels are great. Back full training, giving it some guns, and yeah, so I've got 9 weeks, something like that, depending on the weather. All in. Let's see what happens.
You said earlier that you yourself were a coach. Do you want to tell us about, are you open for business? How do people get in contact with you? Yeah,
best thing to do is either the website or Instagram. It's just Andy Fior-Berry Coaching. I've got a range of athletes, from people attempting their first half marathon to people who are doing the full spine. And everybody has a challenge. Everybody has a different story and a different life and a different way that running has to fit in. And I think that when I was young, I never had a job that I wanted to do. And so my dad suggested I got a trade in order to not waste my life. So that's how I became a plumber. But moving to the coaching in the last 3 years, that is, like, I look forward to my job. I look forward to talking to my athletes. I look forward to helping them achieve their goals, and in any way that I can. And as I say, like, I'm not a slave to one philosophy or another. I just like trying to use the science that's out there, combined with experience and reading other people's experiences, to try and get running to fit into their lives so that it is a positive, productive thing, and they can hopefully chase some dream goals of their own.
Right. I think everybody should find what you've been saying tonight is inspirational, and we're going to wrap it up there. But I'm sure if people want to get in contact with you, you're on Instagram, so we'll put that in the show notes. And just thank you for coming on, Andy. Thank you, Nikki, for being Nikki, and thanks everybody for listening. And it's goodbye from me.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Goodbye.